in the squadron. They called him Bullets, but we call him Greg Kelly. Greg Kelly is on the air
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Everybody should feel a hell of a lot smarter after talking to Blaine Holt. Damn, that guy knows the world very, very well. Hey, to the last guy who was talking about Joe Hathaway, you know, a couple of things here. I just kind of had an attitude there at the end. No, that's not okay. I said I'll ask him about it. I haven't heard much about his campaign. I hope he's running hard. I just looked at his name in Google News. Not too many developments. He's up against that radical lunatic. Look, the Second Amendment ain't going away, and the Second Amendment is so important. That's why the Founding Fathers put it right after the First Amendment, okay? Because it's there to protect the First Amendment. It's also there as a check on government power. Ultimately, you need the citizens with weapons so that the government doesn't get too carried away, okay? You know, I used to be a big gun control guy back when I was stupid, back when I trusted the government, back when I, was naive and a lot of different things. There was a statue at the United Nations, and it's been there for a long time. It's like a, what do you call it, a 44 caliber gun. You know that thing that Dirty Harry used to shoot in the movies? Being that this is a 44 caliber Smith & Wesson that can blow your head clean off. You got to ask yourself, do you feel lucky? Well, do you, punk? Back in the 90s, back in the 70s, I think calling somebody a punk was a real insult. You know, it was like, there was something about that word that really set people off. It's not as bad anymore. Anyway, 44 caliber gun, picture that thing like a giant version of it in copper, and the barrel of the gun is twisted into a pretzel, twisted into a knot. Like, see, the government doesn't work, the gun doesn't work anymore. Isn't that great? You know, beating their swords into plowshares or plowshares into swords, one or the other, making weapons into non-weapons. Isn't that beautiful? And I used to think that, oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, what could be better than destroying weapons and getting rid of all the weapons so we could have peace, beautiful peace. Well, then I saw it in a totally different way. Might have been during COVID. I don't know. I figured out the Second Amendment and its importance long before COVID. But I took a look at that statue that I used to admire. Then I realized, you know, it would take force. It would take a hell of a lot of force to turn that barrel into a pretzel, right? It's metal. And not only was it, they turned it into a knot. How do you do that? It takes strength. It takes power. It takes machinery. Well, that machinery is owned by the government. And I don't trust the government. I love our country. I don't trust our government. I love the system of government that we set up under the Constitution. But so much of it is totally out of control and excessive. We need an armed citizenry as a check. And now, also, you got to remember this. You know, there's some districts. You also got to win. You know, you got to win. If Joe Hathaway gets to Congress, he may not be the National Rifle Association's favorite candidate. But he's not going to be a crazy left-wing lunatic either. He's not going to vote for impeachment, for crying out loud. If we could possibly do that, there would be multiple impeachment hearings on President Trump. And every time we have an impeachment, something disastrous happens next. Have you ever noticed this? When we should have been getting ready for the next disaster or working hard to prevent the next disaster, we've been too busy impeaching presidents. Now, Bill Clinton was a total lowlife with that Monica Lewinsky. It was bad news. Never should have done that. Also, back then, before I was enlightened, I'm like, that was his own sexual activity. It's nobody's business. And I could still say that to a point. But he's the president. He should have known it would get out, and it got out. He was the president in 1993, for crying out loud. It wasn't 1963 anymore. No one was going to cover your ass. But there he was, taking liberties, you know. I remember hearing a guy named, what the hell's that guy? Robert Reich, Secretary of Labor under Bill Clinton. He was like, I can't believe the president would do something like that. Something so small. Why would he risk everything for something so small? And I remember hearing that and repeating it because it sounded smart. And I think might have been, I don't know who it was, but it was a very wise person who said, small? Why do you think these guys get into politics? For that very reason. For the girls. For the power and the perks. Not small. It's half the reason why he's in it. It's half the reason why most of these people go to Congress. So they can be somebody. So they can get chicks. Can you believe that? But it's true. It takes a certain type of person. Now, there are some really good ones in the mix. Really good ones. Mike Johnson's really good. Hey, I think Joe Hathaway would be great, even if he isn't perfect on guns. You got to get elected. I learned that from President Trump, you know. He was kind of telling people to cool it a little bit on right to life. Hey, I got you these justices, but, you know, you got to get elected. You got to be real at the same time. You can be idealistic, but you got to keep it real. All right, so there we are on that. The other matter at hand, we got that war brewing. He also told me about regime change. We've never done regime change, but this is different because we're not giving them the idea. They already want regime change in Iran. They want it. They were in revolt in January before we started dropping the bombs, right? Right. So, you want to hear Sonny Hostin? All right, this is the once every 6 months I care about what they say on The View. And here's the first part where, quite frankly, she's like, more than a few people of color I know who happen to have, let's say they're white collar, right? They throw down the race card pretty hard, and it shuts up a lot of people at the table. And then she does that at The View, and then she finds out from Professor Gates that she's actually the descendant of slave owners. All right, Sonny Hostin. Go ahead, Carlos.
And so what this is about is money, Joy.
Yeah.
This is not about anything else. It's about this country trying to avoid paying African Americans our due.
Well, and also,
wow. I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
Yeah. So how are you feeling, my friend?
I think it's actually pretty interesting that my husband and I have shared roots.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that. And I think it's great for our children to know this information. I guess it's a fact of life that this is how some people made their living.
Kind of blows her worldview wide open, though, right? We have to get our due, she said. Our due. The race card. It used to work very, very well. We're having a bit of an adjustment. Did anybody see those hearings yesterday with the Smithsonian quote unquote intellects? What a bunch of foolish people. I did a little bit of this last night and even yesterday. Brandon Gill, who will be president of the United States. What do we say? When is he going to be president? 2036, 2040, something like that. He's only 30 years old. He's not even old enough at this point to be president, which is kind of interesting when you think about it. These people are embarrassing. Gosh, the Smithsonian Museum. How can you screw it up? We got the coolest things you could put on exhibit. We got Skylab. We've got moon rocks. And then they wokeify everything. So here we go. Brandon Gill putting it to Director Hartig is her name. Typical whack job from the left, but she's got real power. A museum that we pay billions of dollars to run. Billions of dollars to run a museum. Hanging a bunch of pictures. Cut 9.
Director Hartig, thank you for being here. Would you say that the goal of history, even if it's not properly carried out, would you say that the goal of history is to be objective?
Thank you, sir, for the question. I think that
There are many goals of history, and certainly as you collect, as we do, examine evidence, create scholarship.
Is objectivity one of the goals of history?
We strive to be objective and nonpartisan and not based on any ideology.
So it's one of the goals. Doesn't that seem a little bit concerning? It certainly does to me, because as part of this white supremacy document that your organization has promoted, objectivity is a core and defining aspect of white supremacy culture. Do you think that it's the goal of the Smithsonian Institution to promote white supremacy culture?
Sir, do you mind sharing with me which document?
It's white supremacy culture right here. This is part of the mass action toolkit that your organization has promoted for several years now under your leadership.
I love that part. That's my favorite part. Things that make you go, Keep going, Carlos.
Are you promoting a white supremacy culture at the Smithsonian?
Am I promoting a white?
Ma'am, is this a difficult question?
No, sir. I'm just thinking about the mass action toolkit. We didn't develop it. But back to your question, no, we're not promoting any ideology.
Does it concern you that your goal is objectivity? One of your goals is objectivity, and your mass action toolkit references objectivity as a defining characteristic of white supremacy culture?
It's not our toolkit.
It is your toolkit. You've been promoting it for quite some time.
Toolkit, sir.
But you've been promoting it.
It is used as a reference, I believe, probably in 2019, 2020.
Yes, under your leadership, it has been used as a reference. Is Mickey Mouse racist?
Oh, there's this whole school of thought about poor Mickey Mouse, who's really the least charismatic of the characters, if you think about it, right? I like Donald Duck. He always has something to say. I like Goofy. I like, I guess that's pretty much it. Pluto, the dog. Keep going.
Is Mickey Mouse racist?
Mickey Mouse is not racist.
It's not racist. According to the Smithsonian Institution, one of your exhibits referenced Mickey Mouse as representing, quote, vestiges of longstanding traditions of blackface minstrelsy. Would you describe that as racist?
No, the historical trajectory of the origins of Mickey Mouse tied directly
so Mickey Mouse is rooted in racism. Is that your testimony?
No, sir, it's rooted in minstrelsy.
Minstrelsy, and you don't think that blackface minstrelsy is racist?
It had certain obvious racial overtones that have been well documented.
Do you think that that's problematic, that Mickey Mouse also has those racial overtones?
It's not for me to determine what's problematic. It's determined to me what's accurate.
Is that right?
Ooh. Hey, you go, girl. What's accurate? Is that right? I think we got one more, and then we'll wrap it up.
Is it important to be polite?
Excuse me, sir?
Is it important to be polite?
Yes, sir.
It's also interesting because the same mass action toolkit that your organization has been promoting references politeness as a defining characteristic of white supremacy culture. Ma'am, are you a white supremacist?
No, sir.
No, sir. Well, that's a cell phone, right? No, sir. Polite. Problem. All right. Announcement from President Trump on Truth Social. This is important. From this point forward, anytime the Islamic Republic of Iran shoots at a ship in the Strait of Hormuz, whether it be by missile, rocket, drone, or any other device or weapon, the United States will bomb and destroy one bridge or power plant, including those located next to or in the capital city of Tehran. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Trump. Wow. All right. Now that's something I think we can make good on. This is going to, right? Please don't push us. All right, don't push us. At the same time, I think this is going to be wrapped up. I think it's going to be wrapped up. I don't know. And at the same time, it's not that big a deal. This is in check. We can handle it. I'm sorry about the loss of life, but we've spent a hell of a lot more money in Ukraine, right? A hell of a lot more money. And Congress signed up for 2 back-to-back forever wars. This ain't no forever war. Sorry, Brit Hume. Be right back.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
All right, we're back. We'll do 2 phone calls if we have time. Let's see. Jay is in Whitestone, New York. Hello, Jay. Joe, make it Joe. Joe, Whitestone. Yeah, hey.
How
Sorry.
you doing, Greg?
Jay's next. What's up?
You mentioned yesterday on TV that you want to go to check out the Smithsonian in Washington, but I know you're a airplane guy. You got to check out their facility that they have at Dulles Airport. You know about it?
Yeah, I've been there. It's been a while, but they got the space shuttle there. They got the Enola Gay there. It's amazing.
So you know about it then. Okay. Hey, could you pass something on to Sid for me? Because he doesn't take calls. I got a good name for Sydney. The Bald Eagle.
That's cute. Come on. You can do better than that. Thanks, Joe. Jay, how are you? You're in Bayonne. Yes, sir.
Hey, Greg, you mentioned Patty Murray earlier, and I just wanted to point out that she's no moderate. She supports abortion up until the moment of birth. On immigration, she was completely horrible throughout the years, voting to give mass amnesty multiple times. On the political hostages of the January 6th, she was completely
Look, she
pro.
stinks. I understand that. She stinks. I said on one issue, and I can't even remember, she had a smidgen of integrity. You know what I mean? Look, I'm looking for some decency in people, and you remind me about all the horror show positions she had. You're right. When you're right, you're right. You know, it's unfortunate how they all went over the cliff. Hell, I remember Chuck Schumer when he had some decent ideas, and he was a decent man. Decent. And then they just went, I don't know, terminally insane. Or maybe they never were decent. They just were doing whatever they did to keep power. And what do they have to do to keep power? What do they have to do to keep power back then, Jay?
Well, back then, the Democrat voter base wasn't as sick as they are now. But you made a good point, because we're so desperate to find decent Democrats that we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel with Patty Murray and people like her, because there are no moderates, there are no decent Democrats. And I think that's the thing with John Fetterman. People are so desperate for a good Democrat, they'll ignore every loony position he ever took just to have themselves one normal Democrat. I think it's futile.
You're right about that. And also, hey, it feels good. Oh, look at me. I'm being friendly and nice to a Democrat. You're right, Jay.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I have to hear some of these 9/11 families out very, very upset, troubled by this civilian, peaceful peace nuclear deal about to be hammered out with Saudi Arabia. I totally understand where they're coming from. Saudi Arabia, it's interesting. Ronald Reagan, when he became president, one of the first things he did was sell Saudi Arabia a very advanced plane. It was called the AWACS jet. What do they call it? Airborne Warning and Control System, AWACS. Very sophisticated, some of our most significant technology on board. Granted, we have, what do they call them? Export versions of these things, that we take out some of the good stuff. We don't give them everything, but they gave them a lot, and Reagan had to get that approved by Congress, and he ultimately did. He got it approved, but he got it by the skin of his teeth. And I kind of was impressed, and I always was a little bit confounded by those guys. This is right after the OPEC crisis, and why was he so intent on giving Saudi Arabia, which, it's a little bit different over there, right? They chop off people's heads. I think you get adultery, they'll chop off your head. But as we have here, the Times, the Trump administration plans to announce that it has reached a broad nuclear agreement with Saudi Arabia that could lead to the country enriching its own fuel for nuclear reactors. The accord is intended to further bind the United States with the Saudi government as the war with Iran strains the relationship. The Trump administration, according to officials, estimates It will provide billions of dollars for the U.S. nuclear industry, starting with Westinghouse, which designs many of the reactors sold abroad. The Trump administration plans to formally sign and announce the agreement with the Saudis. Let's see here. It would be announcing the details to Congress. The agreement likely would have support among many Republicans. Some U.S. lawmakers from both parties have expressed reservations. Israeli officials do not like it. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told reporters in Manila that he had nothing to say about any nuclear agreement with Saudi Arabia, but he will once it comes out. The accord has been under discussion for years, and during the Biden administration, it was actually envisioned as part of a broader deal that would include Saudi diplomatic recognition of Israel. But after the October 7th attacks on Israel by Hamas, the prospect kind of dropped away. President Trump separated the proposal for U.S.-Saudi civilian nuclear cooperation from any demand that Saudi Arabia recognize Israel. Wait a second. Let me see if I got this right. President Trump separated the proposal for U.S.-Saudi civilian nuclear cooperation from any demand that Saudi Arabia recognize Israel. I don't like that. The agreement will require review by Congress, which under the Atomic Energy Act has the power to vote a resolution of disapproval. Well, look, I think we need the friends. Mr. Trump and the Prince Mohammed agreed to proceed with the U.S.-Saudi civilian nuclear partnership during a visit. And now we have all these unresolved issues about 9/11. And have they been resolved? I don't know. I'm going to bring in one of the great spokesmen for the 9/11 families, and he's been touched by this. Let me see if I can get him to weigh in. And I want him to take me through this. I've talked to him before. He's got reservations, as he should, about Saudi Arabia. How do you feel about Saudi Arabia? You know, why are we that reliant on Saudi Arabia for anything now? We are self-reliant on oil, right? We have all the oil. We're self-sufficient when it comes to oil, right? I keep hearing that. What does that mean? Why do we have to bother with the Saudis anymore? Well, must be an expert out there who can answer that question for me. Right now, I'm a little bit confused. What do they know about 9/11 that they have not shared with the 9/11 families or our own law enforcement? We're going to get the answers to those questions. All right. Brett Eagleson will be joining me shortly. He lost his dad on 9/11, and he's a great man. And we're going to put him on the phone here. Let me just actually reach out to him for a second. His name is call. Thank you very much. I just put the message out there. You know, the phones are amazing. The phones are amazing and also heartbreaking. I woke up this morning, grabbed my phone, and I watched a 5-minute movie clip. I wanted to check the weather, and there was a 5-minute clip about some fascinating movie. I all day long, I'm thinking about this movie. A woman is about to make love to her husband, and then the husband hears a weird sound from the garage, goes to the garage, and the car has just been in a major accident. She lies and said, I hit a deer. Turns out she hit a guy. The guy tries to kill him, and he kills that guy, and he's able to do it because he's a butcher. And then the wife says, look, I hit this guy and I was scared. I didn't want to call the police. And now we got to clean up the body. And he does it. They clean up the body. They chop him up at the butcher shop. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And then the police come by the butcher shop. So we're all worried that he's going to get caught because we're rooting for the bad guys somehow. That works that way. Very strange, don't you think? And then what happened is it turns out that the guy they killed was a mobster. And then the mob comes looking. And then I am enthralled by this. And they tell me this entire story in 5 minutes. And it's like, man, how is this? I don't know when they started doing the movie clips, but that's a problem. It hooks you, and it's very, very hard to shake. You've ever noticed that, Carlos? Very, very hard to shake. Now, one thing that's happening, President Trump cannot shake the popularity and love of MAGA. Despite all of this hate, he is still immensely, immensely popular with Republicans and MAGA. No incumbent has this kind of support from his own party. Even CNN has to admit it. Carlos, hit it, please.
Trump is still very popular with Republicans. Just take a look here. Okay, 21st century own party approval rating, about at this point in the second term. We got Trump, we got Obama, we got Bush. Look, they're all fairly popular, but the one who is the most popular, and we have seen this time in and time out, no matter when you look, is Donald John Trump. He's the only one who's over 80%. 83% of Republicans still approve of the job that Donald Trump is doing as president. He still has that magic touch. We'll see if it carries over to South Carolina, but we've seen it in primaries this year, Senate primaries, and that's because he is still a very popular man, historically popular when it comes to his own party liking and approving of the job that he's doing. Trump is still very popular with Republicans. Just take a look here. Okay.
That's good. That's good. That's great, actually. That's fantastic. And I'm going to break down those numbers a little bit more. How is it that he's so popular with all this negative stuff coming at him constantly? It's never ending. How does he bounce back? How does he fight the fake news? How do you cut through all of that stuff? Well, as I break down this poll here, let's see what we got. President's poll numbers. This is from, it looks to me, is this Doug Schertz? 95% with Republicans, 50% overall. 50% overall. Let me see if I can cut down these matrix a little bit. No, can't go any further, but that is very impressive with all he's up against. Imagine if he had fair media coverage. Okay, he's with us. Brett Eagleson. Are you there, sir?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I sure can. Brett Eagleson, an amazing man. You talked to us before. I believe your father was lost on 9/11. And if you could first tell us a little bit about him, and then I want to open this conversation about the Saudi nuclear deal, and I know you have thoughts on that. So, Brett, thank you for being with us.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. Really appreciate you guys having me on and continue to talk about such an important subject, especially, we always like to remind America that this September will mark the 25th anniversary of those horrific attacks. So it's very timely that we're talking about it. My dad is a role model to me. He's a hero. He died that day. He stayed behind. He was only on the 17th floor of the South Tower. He was helping coordinate the evacuation efforts, and he was going on his way up to the 17th floor to grab portable two-way walkie-talkie radios to give to the FDNY, who was having a really hard time communicating, and he was going to clear the floor to make sure that there's nobody stuck there, and that's when the building fell on him. So we do all this advocacy in his honor, and in all of the victims, there's thousands of stories just like that. So our whole point is that we want the truth to come out. We think that there is still accountability to be had. There's still transparency to be had. Everything that we've uncovered and investigative has pointed to the fact that the U.S. government for 25 years, and this is not finger pointing at any specific administration, but for 25 years, the truth has been kept under lock and key. It started with Bush 1, perpetuated by Obama, right up to present day, that the Saudi government was in many ways behind the support that those hijackers received, and we ought to get accountability from Saudi Arabia before any deal is had.
Okay, real quick, what was your father's name?
Bruce
how old
Eagleson.
How old is he when he died?
He was 53.
How old were you when he died?
15.
And what did he do for a living? What was he doing at the World Trade Center?
He worked for a company called Westfield. Westfield owns and operates malls all over the world. They're no longer. They consolidate. They sold to a bigger company. He was a vice president for them. All of the malls on the East Coast were under his kind of portfolio. We live in Connecticut. He was commuting into New York City on a weekly basis. It was a temporary assignment. He was only supposed to have the job down there at the World Trade Center for 6 months because Westfield and Silverstein had recently leased the World Trade Center complex. So if folks don't know this, the World Trade Center site is owned by the Port Authority. So the Port Authority owns the dirt, and the Port Authority entered recently in 2001, they entered into a 99-year lease with Silverstein and Westfield. Westfield was going to redevelop the mall that's currently that was in the subterranean space. So in Fulton Station, surrounding it was this dilapidated mall that was like dimly lit. It was leaking. Westfield said, "Oh, this looks like a diamond in the rough. We want to make this our flagship of the East Coast." And they put my dad on that job, sort of temporarily, to run the renovation process, and get that space up to what it is currently, present day.
Yeah, no, Westfield is still it was kind of there.
And they're still, they still keep the name branding and the recognition. Like if you go down to the World Trade Center site now, it's still the Westfield Oculus and the Westfield Mall. Yep.
Brett, let's talk about Saudi Arabia. It's a little bit complex. Look, I know President. Well, what you say accountable? What do they have, and what did they do? And when we say they, who do we mean in Saudi Arabia? You know, America's a big country. Yeah, we've got people in our government who hate America. We got people in our government who love America. We got a deep state. I would imagine that there are factions inside Saudi Arabia as well. So, like, who are we talking about in Saudi Arabia, and what did they do that's wrong?
Greg, that's a fair point, and that's a point that I often try to make. It's, we are not looking to alienate an ally in the Middle East. We are not calling for war against Saudi Arabia. We are not saying that Saudi Arabia isn't a strategic partner. What we are saying is that everything that we've uncovered, there were elements within the Saudi government that supported these hijackers. And without that help, 9/11 would have had a 0% chance of success. And those aren't my words. A federal judge has reviewed the evidence and has said the same thing. And we want the record to be written that Saudi Arabia, the elements within that government, were responsible. And it's a complex issue, far too complex to get into over, a 5-minute radio segment. But again, accountability must be had. And if there were elements within the United States government, for example, that caused the mass murder of 3,000 Italians, or elements within the U.S. government that caused the mass murder of 3,000 Germans or even Saudis, you better believe our government would have been held accountable. And you better believe that we would have, there were elements and people would have been prosecuted. Omar el-Bayoumi is a Saudi intelligence agent that our own FBI concluded was working with the hijackers. In the days after 9/11, the FBI told Scotland Yard to go raid Omar el-Bayoumi's flat in Birmingham, England. Scotland Yard did it at the FBI's orders. So 10 days after 9/11, the FBI seizes troves of documents which were buried for 25 years. They weren't given to the 9/11 Commission, but they came about through our lawsuit. And in those documents was a videotape of Omar el-Bayoumi hosting the hijackers at his apartment. There was also a videotape of him casing the U.S. Capitol, referring to the plan. He was talking to his brothers, his esteemed brothers. This is the plan, as I referred to. He was filming the U.S. Capitol, talking about the entranceways, the exits, the egresses, saying that the decisions of the West, the demons of the West, make decisions in this building. The Saudi government tried to say that was a tourist video. Now, I don't know. You and I go on vacation. I don't talk about the demons of, I don't know that that's any tourist video.
Sure.
Talking about the exits, right? So all of this was buried, and that's our point, is that 25 years later, this all ought to come out.
Brett, do me a favor. You mind sticking around through the commercial break? We just got one little thing we got to wrap up. This is all fascinating and it's important.
Sure.
Stay with me for just 2 minutes, okay? Thank you, sir. We'll be right back. Fascinating information.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Brett Eagleson is with us. He lost his father, Bruce, on 9/11, has very serious questions and concerns about Saudi Arabia. Before we go, Bruce, do me a favor. This intelligence officer you were talking about who was kind of seemed to be hosting these hijackers and making weird videos. Is there any sense that he was a rogue intel person for Saudi, or was he like, part of the team, part of the community?
Yeah, in fact, quite the opposite of a rogue element. He was reporting to senior Saudi government officials, those that were controlling the embassy in Washington. There was probably 15 Saudi government agents that we've identified in our lawsuit that all have never answered questions. For whatever reason, this information was kept from the families. It was buried, and none of them, people like Bayoumi, they've never had to stand trial. They've never answered questions. They've never been prosecuted. And, I guess what I want to say, if I could say it to the president, if I could say it to America, is that there are clearly many facets to this story. And the reality is that as long as the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia continues to shield and protect co-conspirators like this thug Bayoumi and keep them from facing justice here in the United States, there should be no reason that America rewards them with nuclear capabilities. It's been 25 years. Let's close this chapter, end this nightmare for these families. So we can stop going to Washington, so we can stop pouring our heart out and stop having to fight this fight. Have the Saudi government surrender these individuals. Let's hold them accountable, and let's close this chapter and work together with the Saudi government. To show that you're a trusted ally and you're a good steward of nuclear capabilities, you can't be hiding 9/11 co-conspirators. You can't be fighting us in court. You have to be on our side.
Beautiful. Brett Eagleson, is there a website people can go to for more information?
911justice.org. If people want to help us in our fight for transparency, they can make a donation through there. They could look at the different documents. They can follow along our journey. I think they could follow me on X. I post frequently on that. So, I think by and large, the American people are behind us. I know that they are behind us. The true patriots, the people that love this country. They want to see us have closure. They want to see us have justice. They want to see President Trump step in and do the right thing, too. And I think he has a historic opportunity to do that, and I hope he will.
And one other thing, Brett, what do you do for a living?
I am in banking, believe it or not. So I don't want to continue to have to keep fighting this fight. I've got a family. I've got people that want me present, and this is getting tiring. This is interfering with my life and my peace and hundreds and thousands of other family members. So we just want closure, and what better way to do that than to bring us justice on or before the 25th anniversary?
Wow. Well, Brett, you're amazing. Thank you for what you've done. A lot of people don't know this stuff, and it's very, very important. 911justice.org, 911justice.org. Brett Eagleson, I know your dad, Bruce, would be very proud, and we'll talk to you later. Thank you, sir.
Okay, we'll see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And, folks, that's it for the radio. I'll be making videos later, and we'll resume tomorrow. All the best.
Thanks for listening to The Greg Kelly Show. You can hear The Greg Kelly Show weekdays at 12:15 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?